This is my variant of Preben Torp Jacobsen's light Ollie. For the hook, I'm using a size 14 dry fly hook. For the thread, I'm using 8/0 unit light Cahill. For the tails, I'm using buff coloured microfibrils. For the body, I'm using heron herl dyed in picric acid. For the rib, I'm using fine silver wire. For the first hackle, I'm using blue dun cock, tied palmer wise. And for the second hackle, I'm using a ginger cock hackle. Now, to dress the fly, come in with your tying thread and trap it down directly behind the eye of the hook with about 8 or 9 tight touching turns, working your way back down the hook shank. And now with your microfibrils, just tease out 4 or 5 individual fibres, and now judge them against the hook shank, just so you got some symmetry in the length of the tail in relation to the finished fly. Bind them down with 4 or 5 nice tight turns of thread. And trim off the waste ends. Now come in with your fine silver wire, and again trap that down with nice tight touching turns of thread, bringing your thread down the hook shank to a point where the fly body will finish. Somewhere about so. Come in with your dyed heron herl and just tease out 3 or 4 fibres, and then just trim off the butt sections of the herl. Now come in with your herls, trim off the tips so they're nice and even. Now lay them against the hook shank and bind them down with your tying thread, bringing the thread back up the hook shank in nice touching turns to a point where your palmed hackle will start. Now take your herls in your fingers and wrap them back up the hook shank in nice touching turns. Ideally, you don't want to leave any gap at all. It's got to be nice and tight and touch it. That doesn't look too bad there. There we go. And now with a tying thread, just bind that down with 2 or 3 nice tight turns of thread. And I like to just put one right in front. Trim off the waste end with the scissors. Now, taking your silver wire, rib the fly in nice symmetrical turns of wire. It's up to you how many turns of wire you want. but I like 7 or 8 turns to just give it a nice segmented body. Now catch down your wire with your tying silk, and simply fret off the waist end. Now coming in with your blue done hackle, just mount that in by the stalk. And there we go, some nice tight turns so it's not going to budge. Get your scissors and just trim off that waist end of stalk. Now catching the hackle in your hackle pliers, just palmer the hackle down the hook shank. And it doesn't really matter how scruffy the hackle lies. If you want, you can just brush it back a little bit. And just keep brushing them back. It's going to be a palmered hackle, so it's going to look pretty scruffy and not too neat anyway, but it gives a nice effect to the fly. Ideally, you want a nice webby hackle, and this one's probably the best one I can get. Again, with your tying thread, just come in and bind down that hackle. Trim off the waist end of hackle. And now we're ready for our final ginger hackle. Jacobsen prefers a light honey done hackle, but here I kind of like the ginger hackle. I think it just gives it a good sighter when it's on the water. Again, with your tying thread, just bind that down with 4 or 5 nice tight turns. Get your scissors, trim off that waist end of hackle stalk. Now with your hackle pliers, just take 2 or 3 wraps of hackle. That's all you need. If the hackle fibres are in your way, you can just brush them back a little bit. There we go. And once you're happy with the density of the hackle, come in with your uni thread and just catch down the hackle stalk. If you've got any stray fibres, just take your scissors and start to trim them away. Once you're happy, now come in with your tying thread and just take 3 or 4 nice tight turns. Now take your whip finish tool and build a nice small whip finish. Give it a good tighten down. Now come in with your scissors, cut the tying thread, and if you've got any stray fibres, just cut them off and brush them out of the way. One there I don't like. There we go. I don't normally use head cement, but if you want, you can come in with your bodkin and just put a small dab of head cement right in front of the hackle. And there we have my variant dressing of Preben Torp Jacobsen's light Ollie.